Hello, my name is Gale Yates. I have lived in Caraway since 1977. I have worked in the school system, Riverside and Caraway schools since 1977 when I moved there. I grew up and have lived in this area my whole life. I grew up in Monette, went to high school at Monette, and as a child knew that I wanted to be a teacher and knew I wanted to be a principal, which sounds kind of crazy, but that was my goal. And I certainly enjoyed my career doing that. I taught at Bay for 5 years when I first got out of college at Arkansas State, and then I moved to Caraway and was hired there to be the principal. And I taught math and was high school principal, and was there until we consolidated, and at consolidation I remained there, but of course then we were Riverside and I became the junior high principal. I think one of the most interesting things about Caraway and about Lake City regarding the history is the history of the consolidation. Our schools were getting smaller, both Caraway and Lake City at that time. So were other schools around us like Monette, Manila, Leachville, and our schools joined together in consolidation talks, and we came really close to have a consolidation of 5 area schools. I thought it was on go, but then Monette and Leachville decided to consolidate together and become Buffalo Island Central, and that kind of put a damper on everything. And at that point, Caraway and Lake City started talking, and it seemed to be a wonderful match. And I remember the talks. I guess I went to every consolidation meeting. Mr. Gerald Jennings was the superintendent at Caraway, and Dr. Charles Owens was the superintendent at Lake City, and they worked so hard and diligently, and it was really a big deal. I can't explain to you what a big deal it was. And the election, working hard on the election, and then once it passed and the decision was made, the kids were involved in making lots of decisions, like a name for the school colors. All these things were very important to everybody. So we had an election, and anybody could vote, and it was decided we'd be Riverside, and our colors, of course, would be maroon and gray, and our mascot, the Rebels. Would you be interested in hearing what the runner-up choice was?
Yes, I would.
It was a suggestion that I had made, but it didn't win. We talked about being East Side because we were on the east side of Craighead County. We have a west side over on the other side. So we talked about being East Side and being the Eagles with the colors red, white, and blue. But that didn't win. That didn't win. People wanted to be Riverside and Rebels and maroon and gray. So that it won pretty handily, as I remember. An issue that really shows how things have changed in my career in education, I think, concerns the use of tobacco products. When I first came to Caraway, students and teachers could smoke. There was a smoking area outside that if the students smoked, they had to go to smoke. And the student could smoke at school if their parents sent a note saying he may smoke. This eventually was, taken away, and it was done gradually. I remember that they didn't want to just take this away from everybody abruptly. So what they did was it was 9th through 12th graders that could smoke at school. When it was decided they would make it a no smoking at school, the first year that it had been 9 through 12, so the first year that they cut back, it was only 10th, 11th, and 12th that could smoke. And then the next year, only juniors and seniors, and then the next year, just seniors, and then nobody. And it just kind of boggles people's mind now to think about this. I can remember when teachers could smoke at school, bus drivers, whatever. I remember during this consolidation issue, I mentioned that Dr. Owens was a superintendent at Lake City, and he was a smoker then, and Mr. Jennings was superintendent at Caraway, and they met in their offices. They met almost every day and worked on different issues. And I can remember when Mr. Jennings and Dr. Owens would meet, Dr. Owens smoked, And they would usually meet in the office with the door shut, and when they would come out, smoke would just kind of fog out from his smoking in there because there weren't any windows in that office. And I can remember asking Mr. Jennings, how can you stand all that smoke? And he said, oh, I don't know, I'm just used to it. But nowadays that would just seem crazy that the school administrators and teachers and people could smoke at school. Now you go way back, like when I was a student at Monette, I can remember having a school bus driver who smoked cigars. And he didn't have it lit up, but he kept the cigar in his mouth all the time when he was driving the bus the whole time. And we just didn't think anything about it. He was a high school teacher. And so that just gives you an example of how much things have changed, just the attitude toward tobacco products and the use of it at school. I grew up in Monette and have never lived anywhere but here in Northeast Arkansas in this area. After graduating from high school, I went to Arkansas State and became a teacher and taught at Bay a while, and then went to Caraway. Caraway was a wonderful place to start. It was a community that is just absolutely, still is, always has been such a good community. The people support each other. The people, the churches, the businesses supported the school, and I just can't say enough good things about the good people that are there. It's sad that the small towns like Caraway are kind of drying up. I think it's very sad. I'm glad that Lake City is growing, and because of its proximity with Jonesboro and the widening of the highway, but when there was a time when both towns were to a point that they couldn't exist as a school alone and meet the state standards. So that was the reason, the impetus for the consolidation was meeting state standards in an economic way. When I first went to Caraway, I was principal of the high school, and I also taught math a couple of periods a day, and only did that a couple of years. And then we had to start making cuts because of financial reasons and because we were losing enrollment. And it was decided, one thing was that they wouldn't have but one principal. So I became principal for K through 12. That was very busy. So I worked with the elementary school and high school for quite a while. The talks for consolidation were very interesting, and the people were wanting something better for both communities, and I think they really worked hard to get that and came up with a real good solution for us. The consolidation of Caraway and Lake City was very unusual to some people because the school buses had to go through the BIC district at Black Oak, which wasn't in our district, and they actually would stop at the Black Oak Church of Christ and make a swap. The bus drivers would switch buses. The kids would stay on the buses and go on. The junior high kids that were from Caraway, the senior high kids would ride to the Black Oak Church of Christ, then their bus drivers would get off, and the bus drivers from Lake City would bring them on over, the high school kids on over to Lake City, and then the junior high kids from Lake City, the bus drivers would get off, and then the bus drivers from Caraway would drive them on to Caraway. We did that for many years, and it sounds so awkward, but it worked just fine. It really did. One thing I wanted to say, and this, I don't know if this is pertinent, but when you talk about the history of this area, there have been so many instances where the community has gotten together to help people. And it just amazes me. And unless you saw this happen, you just can't imagine how good it is to be from a small town. We've had several, in working in schools over the years, there's been numerous times that we've had a child that was very sick. We'd have a child that was a patient at St. Jude. And they just would get together. It didn't matter if you were from Black Oak or Monette or Jonesboro or Lake City or Caraway. They would get together and do what needed to be done. My son had brain cancer and was a patient at St. Jude, and it was about the same time that Coach and Ms. Campbell's son was a patient at St. Jude. And the community just did everything that needed to be done. Whatever it was, they did it. And including fundraisers, helping the family to sit up with the child or take them. And it's just so good to be from a community that will do what needs to be done. And I think that's one thing that's so great about living in a small town area.